So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 28, text 34. Itvam, Riham, Sutam, Bhogan, Vaidarvi, Madharikshana, like the moonshine, the moon. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Just as the moonshine follows the moon at night, immediately after King Maliyadvaj departed for Kulachala, his devoted wife, whose eyes were very enchanting, followed him, giving up all homely happiness, despite family and children. Kindly repeat after me. Just as the moonshine follows the moon at night. Immediately after King Maliyadvaj departed for Kulachala, his devoted wife, whose eyes were very enchanting, followed him, giving up all homely happiness, despite family and children. Purport. Just as in the Vanaprastha stage, the wife follows the husband, similarly, when the spiritual master retires for Nirjana Bhajan, some of his advanced devotees follow him and engage in his personal service. Can everyone be all right for the translation? Or should I tell her to be a little softer? It's okay. Yeah, maybe it should be a little softer. Could we request that the attention Russian devotees, is it possible you could just turn down the volume just a little bit on the translation, because here we're getting two vibrations at the same time. If there's some way the volume can be turned down, we would appreciate it. Turn down a little bit so you can still hear the translation, but not so loud. So, just as in the Vanaprastha stage, the wife follows the husband, similarly, when the spiritual master retires for Nirjana Bhajana, some of his advanced devotees follow him and engage in his personal service. In other words, those who are very fond of family life should come forward in the service of the spiritual master and abandon so-called happiness afforded by society, friendship and love. Society, friendship, and love. A verse by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Guru Astaka is significant in this regard. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada. A disciple should always remember that by serving the spiritual master, he can easily advance in Krishna consciousness. All the scriptures recommend that it is by pleasing the spiritual master and serving him directly that one can attain the highest professional stage of devotional service. The word Mantirekshana is also significant in this verse. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained in his Sandarbha that the word Mandira means intoxicating. If one's eyes become intoxicated upon seeing the deity, he may be called Mantirekshana. Queen Vaidarbhi's eyes were very enchanting, just as one's eyes are Mantirekshana when engaged in seeing the temple deity. Unless one is an advanced devotee, he cannot fix his eyes on the deity and the temple. Translation again, just as the moonshine follows the moon at night, immediately after King Maliyadvaj departed for Kulachala, his devoted wife, whose eyes were very enchanting, followed him, giving up all homely happiness despite family and children. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada. There are certain classes, texts and verses which could be compared to swimming in a nice river where you just flow with the current and it takes you right to Sarvanam Parichacha or Dehinis Vinyatade or some foundational point, and it's easy to elaborate and express whatever little realizations we have on basic points. But there are other verses and purports which may be compared to swimming in very choppy waters, very turbulent waters, where there's some current is going this way, some current is going that way. We say cross currents. And correct me if I'm wrong, but today's verse in purport, and also continuing from yesterday's, is not, you might say, a very easy verse in purport to understand. Maybe it's just me, but for me it's not easy. So Srila Prabhupada said we should study his books scrutinizingly. That means that although I could just give a whole class about Yasyat Prasada Bhagavat Prasada, which is certainly very fertile ground, and we could really elaborate on that and easily fill up the class time, I felt it's my duty to deal with some of the details that come up in this verse in purport. And that way we'll all become educated. In fact, I would mention that I looked in my computer and I already did a preparation a few years ago for the same verse. But when I looked at the preparation that I made, I realized that I was not understanding quite properly. That I see some new lights now. That things that seemed almost inexplicable, and I suggested different adjustments and solutions. Now I'm seeing perhaps a simpler way of understanding, or perhaps not. That will be for the learned Vaishnavas to judge. I've tried to be sometimes with questions. I mean, I don't want to exaggerate. It's not like it's some, you might say, big riddle or some mysterious esoteric thing, but it is kind of mysterious. Even that term, Madhidekshana, it's a very mysterious term, and there are a lot of implications to it. You give a whole class just on Madhidekshana, but let's see what we have. First of all, we have some Sanskrit terms there. Now, I don't know, I just came a few days ago and I just heard the last few classes. It's possible that in an earlier class, someone giving class took advantage of a very special resource that Srila Prabhupada gives us in his purport to the last verse of this chapter. I think it's verse 68. And that resource is a glossary, an explanation of some of the terms, a short glossary. One of the longest explanations is this term, Madhidekshana. But let's pick out a couple of other terms from this glossary. One is included, which we hear in this verse, as Maliyadvaj. Maliyadvaj is a very short definition. It just means a nice devotee who's like sandalwood. Now, if someone just coming for the first time and said, what does that mean? A devotee is like sandalwood. But remember that prayers of Queen Kunti, Malaya, Shiva, what is it? Nanda something. The sandalwood makes the whole forest famous forest, because sandalwood is like the Malayan. Sandalwood makes the Malayan hills well known. So if one good devotee or one good son or one good prince appears in a dynasty, then that whole Sangha, that whole kingdom, that whole family, that whole dynasty becomes glorified. So King Maliyadvaj was like that. Maliyadvaj. Vaj means flag, no? So kind of standing out and making his whole dynasty glorified. Another term, Kulachala. So Achala and Chala and Achala. So Chala is in Bhagavad Gita definition of sacrifice or austerity in the mode of passion. It says that, what is it? Raja Dhruvam, Raja Achalam Dhruvam Achala. It's Dhruvam Adhruvam Achalam. Adhruvam Achalam. It means it's flickering, it's not steady, that type of austerity in the mode of passion. So, Kulachala means a but you go there to Ulachala, it's as nice as possible. A place, a peaceful place. That's where King Mali the Baj retired. The definition of Mandirikshana, which is also specifically mentioned in this purport, is also given, and it's quite elaborate, and you can draw from that if you have time. The second topic when I get to that. There's two main topics that I've seen both yesterday and today. Bhakti Prabhupada Swami gave class yesterday, and he spent most of the time in the class discussing Abhideya, discussing pure devotional service, and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And what he was doing, in a sense, was kind of connecting these two topics. I found another connection today also, which this time we'll touch on. But what are the two topics? One topic is this Nirjana Bhajan, this idea of retiring, and the spiritual master, in the last stage of his life, he goes to a solitary place. He takes some advanced disciples with him, and he performs Nirjana Bhajan. Nirjana is definitely, generally not the prescribed destination for the Goshthianandi who wants to preach. But at the end of life, that is appropriate. Also, in the case of Srila Prabhupada, his Nirjana Bhajana would have been also still Goshthianandi, because he would be writing. He wanted to just write, but we didn't let him. I'm not talking so much myself, but in general, the devotees present, they were not able to free up Srila Prabhupada from management and even like direct traveling and preaching. I mean, he went around the world 12 times in his older age. You'd think that would be enough. But no, until the end. So anyway, that's one topic. The other topic is Madhyadekshana, which comes out in a lot of detail about that. And how does these two topics, Madhyadekshana again means one whose eyes are enchanting, or one whose eyes become enchanted by the deity, and therefore the eyes become enchanting because they become beautified by seeing the deity. Just like we hear the competition between Krishna and the gopis. Krishna sees gopis, and he becomes so ecstatic that he becomes more beautiful, and then the gopis are looking at Krishna and he's becoming more beautiful because he's seeing them, and then they're becoming more beautiful, like that. So there's very transcendental competition going on here. So the two topics, if we actually look at the definition of the term, it's right here in the Bhagavatam. We go to the end of the chapter. Glossary. The chapter is called Kalanjana Becomes a Woman in His Next Life. And we have Madhyadekshana. I won't read it all. So there's a simple definition, and then it goes into a deeper, more esoteric. That's why I said the term is a little mysterious. Madhyadekshana refers to one whose eyes are so attractive, and one who observes them becomes maddened by her. In other words, Madhyadekshana means beautiful young girl. I told you this is a little complicated. But then, according to Jiva Goswami, Madhyadekshana means the personified deity of Bhakti. If one is attracted by the Bhakti cult, he becomes engaged in the service of the Lord and the spiritual master, and thus his life becomes successful. Vaidarbhi, the woman, became a follower of her husband. As she left her comfortable home for the service of her husband, a serious student of spiritual understanding must give up everything in the service of the spiritual master. Now note that what I'm doing is I'm reading Prabhupada's explanation of this term in the glossary, given as part of his purport at the end of the chapter. Everyone with me? And just see how Prabhupada is going from one of the main topics to the other main topics and bringing it together in this one definition. It goes on to state, as stated by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, again, Yasya Prasad and Bhagavad Prasad, if one wants actual success in life, he must strictly follow the instructions of the spiritual master. By following such instructions, one is sure to make rapid progress in spiritual life. The statement by Vishwanath Chakravarti is in pursuance of the following, etc., etc. So he didn't exactly spell it out, but that theme of asking advanced disciples, please, I want to retire. A few of you, okay, you, 3, 4, you come with me. I'm going to a solitary place. We'll just have some Krishna Katha, and I will write my books. And the rest of the big guns, dynasties, sannyasis, etc., they can take care of the management of the society or by preaching directly. So that's here, you follow, just like the example that Vidarbhi is following her husband. So the two topics, it starts off with Mandireshana, and what Maharaj did yesterday was he talked about spiritual advancement, which is kind of neutral territory, which ties in both the idea of enhanced vision and also the specific instruction that Prabhupada is giving his disciples in the purport. Yes, Prabhupada had an agenda in his purport. He was trying to convince the disciples to do something which unfortunately they were not able to do. Just in fairness to the disciples, my godbrothers, Srila Prabhupada also expressed other desire to keep preaching actively till his last breath. The devotees asked him to come to Hawaii and take it easy, and we have a mango crop is there. The climate is so nice. And Prabhupada said, no, I want to die like Bhishma on the field of battle and continue preaching to my last breath. It's not that Prabhupada was obsessed only with the Ajahn Bhajan, but he would have liked to. And therefore he woke up every night at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning to write the books, even before the question of retiring came up. So I had mentioned at the beginning that this is like a little more complex verse in purport. What did I mean by that? There's many different things which are not so simple here. I mean, for one thing, we're hearing a fable. A fable. Okay, I don't have time, but I have a dictionary. Dictionary definition of a fable is a story often involving animals, but it doesn't have to involve animals, that teaches some lesson. Anyway, you can look in the dictionary to see the dictionary of fable. So at the end of this chapter, Srila Prabhupada says we've been hearing a fable. A fable is usually not a true story. It's a legend or a myth or something like that. Now normally, Bhagavatam, we have to accept it as literally true. But in this case, as you've probably heard many times, in the chapters about Puranjana, then it's allegorical, it's symbolic, it shouldn't be taken literally. At the same time, there is a story. So that's one thing. Of course, the chapter before Puranjana leaves his body is much more detailed and complex, with so many symbols and so much to understand there. And then after he leaves his body, now in the form of Vidarbhi, the woman who is supposed to follow her husband, she does, it's also allegorical, but you notice it's not quite as thick with so many different references and symbols, etc. But it's a little complicated. Now, it is complicated enough that King Prachini Bardish, who's the one who Narada Muni is preaching to, wants to also get it clarified. So there's a whole other chapter that follows. Next chapter is all questions. He asks the question and then Narada Muni goes through it, symbol by symbol, and explaining more detail exactly what this all meant, all this allegory. So we're not alone. It's not just, oh, it's Kali Yuga, we're so foolish, we don't understand. Even King Prachini Bhakti, who is a very special personality, he also needed more clarification from his preceptor, Narada Muni. Now, in the purport He's, on the one hand, he's being faithful, which he must do. He's being faithful to the text. You're commentating on Bhagavatam, you have to respect the context and the story and what is going on in the text. An example of that is that so I mentioned at the beginning that I had prepared this earlier, and now I'm seeing blue lights as an example of this. That earlier I couldn't quite understand how Srila Prabhupada was talking about his advanced disciples that should follow him, and also saying that this is for those who are too attached to family life. That's what we heard in the purport. That the advanced disciples should follow the spiritual master. Also in yesterday's some mention of it. And at the same time, it's for those who are too attached to family life. Well, this is multitasking. I was trying to understand that. Which disciples was Prabhupada referring to? Is it only grihastas he was thinking would come with him to the secluded place? Those who were in grihasta ashram and were too attached, and yet at the same time very advanced? I was trying to figure that out, and a simpler explanation which occurred to me, and I can get your approval or disapproval, but a simpler explanation is that Prabhupada is multitasking. He has an agenda. One thing he's doing is he's giving an instruction to disciples. I'll give in a moment, I'll give a few other examples in Bhaktivedanta purports where Srila Prabhupada does that. There are many examples, I just can remember a few. So that's happening. What is the instruction? That let me retire soon and go to night if you come with me. Few of you. Advanced disciples. But at the same time, he's respecting the context that Vaidarbhi was in fact in Grihastha Ashram, obviously, the wife of Malayadvaj, King Malayadvaj. So it was necessary to take it in that spirit that she was leaving Grihastha Ashram to go to Vanaprastha Ashram, major transition. And at the same time, Prabhupada may not necessarily have been thinking only of Grihastha disciples to come with him, but at the same time he is respecting that that's the context. He was a Grihastha, Vaidarbhi, and she is taking now, along with her husband, Vanaprastha, actually going to the forest, to that place, Kulacha. Another example is at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada, today's purport, Srila Prabhupada states that just as one's eyes are manjidakshana when engaged in seeing the temple deity, unless one is an advanced devotee, he cannot fix his eyes on the deity in the temple. Well, I'm not an advanced devotee, and I can stare at the deities. I can fix my eyes. What does this mean? So in my previous explanation, I got involved with probably 200 words of trying to, well, we can understand like this, we can understand like that. But then, this time I looked a little more carefully at the purport, and when Prabhupada's explaining Bhakti-dakshana, he says that if one's eyes become intoxicated upon seeing the deity, he may be called Bhakti-dakshana. So it's not only that you just physically look at the deities, but you have to become intoxicated in a spiritual sense. To become mad, to become like Lord Chaitanya. He was not deified. So he sees Lord Jagannath and faints, and he went into a swoon. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had to test and see what is going on. He didn't die, but he was practically not breathing. So this is not for the neophyte. Not that, well, wait a second, deity service, that's supposed to be for the Prakrita Bhakta, and now we're seeing this focus on the deities. This has to be very different. So this is some further explanation. What are some other examples, just very briefly, of Prabhupada giving instruction? Well, you may know other examples. I'll just mention a couple quickly. One is the instruction in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we find in my reading of Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's so much nectar there. I want to read. Please give me a blessing are so many different Bengali, Vaishnav, Prashada, Boga preparations, Prashada, whatever. And then what does Prabhupada say in the purport? The cooks in all the sectors of the Krishna conscious movement should learn all these recipes. So very specifically, here's Bhakti Vrata purport, and at the same time, there's something else going on. He's publicly announcing, I am instructing my disciples. If you're not my disciple, well, you can just hear my instructions. My disciples and my followers, learn these preparations. Learn how to cook these preparations. Another example, there's so many good. There was the famous, it's a little bit more subtle, but in the 8th canto, the famous example of Gajendra fighting the crocodile and losing the fight because he wasn't in his position of strength. So then Prabhupada was stating that if someone has trouble, then don't leave the association of devotees. Stay in the association of devotees. And I know it's famously known, the devotee is a very nice devotee still, he's doing very well. I of course won't mention his name, some of you know, but don't mention his name. It wouldn't be proper. But Prabhupada was thinking of a specific devotee. And I knew this devotee because he was our GBC for a short time where I was. And it was very shocking in the society that this devotee was sannyasa and had fallen down in probably 76 or something around there. And in that purport, Prabhupada wanted to give this instruction. There are other ones I can't remember right now, but so it's not unique, but once in a while in Prabhupada's purports you'll hear him giving instruction. But here's an instruction quite specific. Again, not only for grihastas, but for certain advanced devotees you want to follow. Anything else? So then the last part is just this idea of modulation. This is quite mysterious. And this whole idea of vision. On the one hand, I don't want to give the impression what I'm going to say, I'll say it. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he emphasized the Drisya Vichara. Drisya Vichara. That means to distinguish between the seer and the seen. Not like Mayavad, everything becomes one. There's a distinction. But then he described two kinds of ways that people make this distinction. One is called what he called Goloka Darshana. Goloka Darshana, and the other is called Jagat Darshana. Now Goloka Darshana is a spiritual vision. Spiritual vision means that whatever I'm thinking, whatever I'm analyzing, whatever I'm trying to understand, Krishna is the center. Krishna is the center. And I am to be seen by him, I'm to be enjoyed by him. Not that I'm the seer and I'm the enjoyer. And that is quite an adjustment. Satsvarup Maharaj described it as a Copernican revolution. That it should be Krishna-centered. Not that I'm the center and there's my bank account, there's my wife and family, there's my home, there's my Krishna, there's my temple, there's my... It's all, and I'm feeling I'm in the center. It's very hard to make this change. It's a fundamental change. But we should rather see Krishna, Ishavasha. Krishna is the center, God-centered. Even in our own lives, we should see Krishna in the center. And then my service, my home, this, that, that's all going around Krishna. Not that I'm in the center and Krishna is going around me. At the same time, not that I'm the enjoyer and the seer. We should see Krishna as the enjoyer and the seer. And as Prabhupada would repeat, we should not so much try to see Krishna, but try to act in such a way that Krishna wants to see us. And we can see in many different examples, even for people in general, the dynamic principle is that we're to be seen. After all, we're energy. We're individuals, but we're individual units of Jiva Shakti, of finished. So, for instance, super soul. Let's describe Anashtam Anyo Chakashati. There's two birds in the tree. One bird is actively enjoying the fruits of the tree, that's the conditioned soul, and the other bird is the witness, he's just watching. So yes, Krishna is watching us. We are being seen by Krishna. But if we want to really advance in devotional service, we really have to be seen by Krishna and also enjoyed by Krishna. We have to act in such a way and think and feel and will in such a way that Krishna will want to see us. So this is something that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati emphasized quite a lot. And again, to repeat, not so much that we're trying to see Krishna, but rather that we're trying to attract Krishna's attention. Just like Maharaj, Bhakti Prabhupada Maharaj mentioned in the class yesterday, that what is that called? Krishna Karshini? Is that the class? Krishna Karshini. One of the two topmost characteristics of pure devotional service, that it attracts even Krishna. So that's what we want to do. We want to attract Krishna by our sincerity. Well, so many examples are there, but for instance, when in Govardhan Lila, when things became very difficult with all the, it's called Ashma Varsha. You know Ashma Varsha? Ashma is stone. That's in Bhagavad Gita. So Ashma. And Varsha, you know, rain. So what is a stone rain? Hail. H-A-I-L. You know the word hail? You get hailstones coming sometimes in certain climates. So that was coming. Hailstones, stone rain, and winds, and so much disturbance, lightning bolts. So, Sida Palu Kashushti Atma Sharanam Jishvam Kambutsmayam. So this Jishva is that Krishna acted by seeing, he was looking, he was giving his glance, and then he went into action. It's also this kind of Utsmayam, he was smiling very broadly. Not that he was happy because my devotees are suffering, but he was smiling because he said in just one moment they're all going to become very happy. And Drishva, out of compassion, he glanced at him. So this idea of the glance of the Lord, yes, we know in Shrishti Lila, the glance of the Lord impels the whole creation process, Shrishti. But also, in general, this is so critical that Krishna's glance is so important. Queen Kunti, for instance, she sees all the opulence of the Pandavas and the Rishis. She says all these cities and villages are flourishing in all respects because the herbs and grains are in abundance. The trees are full of fruits. The rivers are flowing. The hills are full of minerals, and the oceans are full of wealth. All this is due to, yes, your glancing upon them. If you didn't glance upon them, this would not exist. Because you glanced, that's why. She didn't take credit, oh, we're such a great dynasty, we're so happy. Because you glanced on it, everything is happening. If you don't glance, everything will be finished. So the merciful glance of the Lord, or the pure devotee, is what we want. So these are some points. Again, to tie it all together, at least to try to the idea of Prabhupada's multitasking, his instruction to try to get some disciples to be ready to come with him from Nirjana Patra. And at the same time, this idea of Mandireshna, it comes together with the basic principle of we want to advance spiritually. How to advance spiritually? We advance spiritually by drawing Krishna's attention, the attention of Guru, by acting not for our own name and fame, but for his pleasure, for their pleasure, the pleasure of Radha Krishna, the pleasure of Guru, the pleasure of Gauriya. And that way, that's the principle of it. Tadvidi panipatena pari prashnena sevaya videkshanti te jnana jnanena tadvita. That one, by service and surrender and submission, by pleasing the spiritual master, and then making proper inquiry, that is the secret of success. By pleasing the spiritual master, drawing his attention. Just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he said of our Srila Prabhupada, he said, I have marked him. I have seen him, I have marked him. Yes, he's cast his glance on Abhay Babu. He's seen him because he likes to hear. Of course, many things Prabhupada did. His writing, his sincerity, his help, even though he was in Grihastha ashram, but especially his desire to hear. That's another term, shruteshana. We see through the ears. We should see by hearing, or drink through the ears. So I warned you, it wasn't such a simple, straightforward verse. Did I make it even more complicated, or did I make it a little more simple? How many say I made it more complicated? And he's my friend, so he can tease me. All right. So thank you very much for your kind attention. We have our eyes on the question. Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Thank you, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
The switch is a little slower. Someone expert on switches?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. I have a question in regards to understanding an instruction of Srila Prabhupada, which you mentioned in your class in passing. How do we understand his reason for giving such an instruction? The instruction is the one that you mentioned, namely the purport of the H.H Bhakti Prabhupada, where he instructs clearly that all the cooks of ISKCON should learn these specific recipes as they were cooked 500 years ago in West Bengal and more Chinese times. We can make a strong argument in favor of the universal application of Krishna consciousness, and independent of cultural context. Krishna says in the Gita to offer with love, fruit of belief, and so on. The fourth canto, somewhere else, I think the 8th chapter, Prabhupada mentions, Narada Muni speaks about offering to the deity food that is locally available, and Prabhupada talks about time, place, and circumstance. So, in the light of this sort of very scientific, universal applicability of Krishna consciousness that does not depend on geographical or cultural or ethnic considerations, why does Srila Prabhupada give this instruction?
Well, you don't want to you want to make a straw man argument. In other words, we don't want to be challenged by something that Srila Prabhupada did not say. And what he did not say in that instruction, correct me if I'm wrong, is that these are the only preparations that should be offered. So it's just nice. Bhakti Swami, other devotees give us a very simple guideline. First class is follow Vaishnav, Vedic culture in the service of Krishna. Second class is offer pizza. Follow your local culture, but to please Krishna. That's nice. Third class is follow Vedic culture, but not with any reference to Krishna, just for some Sukriti or Karma Kanda, whatever. And last class is follow whimsic, don't follow any Vedic culture, just, flow with the flow, and don't even try to please Krishna by even making hippie offerings. first class is we follow the culture and we use that to serve Krishna. I feel comfortable with that hierarchy of levels of in service. Is that okay with you? It makes sense.
I appreciate your answer, but I don't know if I would fully agree with that.
All right, well, there's no time to elaborate. We can talk.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. There's a question or a comment, Maharaj. Right in the courtyard.
Yeah, I think I know what your comment is going to be.
There's going to be two ways. This is regarding the discussion yesterday about Tulsi Devi, where it should be Vishnu Bhakti or Krishna Bhakti. We were asked to lead Tulsi Puja Kirtan in LA as one disciple, and I chanted Krishna Bhakti. So he corrected me because he heard the lecture of Srila Prabhupada in LA, especially chastising a devotee, chanting Krishna Bhakti. He said, you should not change because we are taking Krishna Bhakti is so cheap. So that is one instruction from Srila Prabhupada. But then he wrote to Govinda Dasi. She's the Acharya of Tulsi Devi. She's responsible for making sure that Tulsi Devi grow nicely in the Western world. And Srila Prabhupada gave 3 mantras to Govinda Dasi, one for circumambulating, one for offering obeisances, and also one for picking up Tulsi leaves. And Prabhupada specifically says Krishna Bhakti. So both are correct, seemingly. The only thing though is that when the leader of the Kirtan, Tulsi Puja Kirtan leader, if he says Vishnu Bhakti, then we should follow Vishnu Bhakti. It's not that the leader will say Vishnu Bhakti and the followers will say Krishna Bhakti. So that actually, if you want to make advancement rapidly in Krishna consciousness, there are many the prayers that we do in the morning program. If we chant it correctly, then we can make further advancement rapidly. And if we say it in a different way, then we can still make advancement, but it's not so fast. Especially the Nisinga prayers. If we look at the book, Vaishnava Songbook, and the leader was being differently, it's very sad. So the leader of the Kirtan especially should learn proper way how to the Maha Mantra especially, and the songs, Dalanjan. It's just a comment. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I thought we were going to start having Easter ghosting. That is important to appreciate very, very much. There's still time maybe for one more question. But someone who didn't ask yet? First questions? Okay, Prabhu.
I don't want to take the mic from anyone. I already asked the question, but if no one else...
No one else is asking it. Please ask it.
So may I continue down this topic of first class culture, second class culture?
Well, I don't. The thing is, this is like a whole discussion, and it's kind of like when we give a class, even though this class was like multifaceted because there were different topics that came up, and I mentioned it's like choppy water and cross current. I'd like to, like at the end, I'd like the devotees to at least leave with a sense of the text and purport. Of course, this topic, I wouldn't have mentioned it, it had no relation whatsoever, but I was trying to answer your question. But then this can get into a whole discussion about Vedic culture and to what extent we should follow and what it means to act to please Krishna, and there's so many ramifications. So I I would think that would really invite us to a digression, to a whole discussion that we just won't have time to get into. And I want to leave the devotees with the sense I was trying to inculcate of. Basically, my message is we have to study Prabhupada's books scrutinizingly and think about these things. I'm not saying everything I said was perfect, but I was trying to clarify a few things. And because I'm not hearing any senior devotees correcting me, maybe they're not sure, but maybe they'll correct me afterwards. We say, speak now or hold your peace. You're peaceful? Okay. So I'll assume that this is acceptable. And also I want to express this is the first time I'm giving a class here in H.H Bhakti Mandir after accepting the order of sannyasa. For me, it's a great occasion. And you're all very merciful to me. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai.